Hello, Backdroppers. It's January 24th, 2018, and this is the weekly developer meeting for Backdrop CMS, where we get together every single week and talk about what we're working on in Backdrop CMS, functionality that we're working on, ways that we can improve our website and peripheral things, the world of Contrib. We cover it all here in the Backdrop Contrib developer meeting. We cover it all except for outreach and design, which happens an hour before this meeting every other week. So check out those meetings as well. I know that the dev meetings are the most popular for mostly devs. But let's get rolling here. So updates from the project management committee, no updates this week that I'm aware of. No community updates either. I don't think. Jen usually puts together numbers, but as she is off jumping horses around in Southern California, she was unavailable to aggregate those numbers for us this week. We did find some updates here in the world of Contrib. We've got 3 new modules that have joined the Backdrop Contrib group since last week. The Photo Swipe module, which is a Lightbox-like alternative. This is totally awesome. Like in the Backdrop Ops/Contrib GitHub group, that's where people submit requests to join the Backdrop Contrib group. But it's also where people post issues every now and then to give people a heads up saying, hey, I'm working on this Contrib module, specifically a port of this Contrib module. And it's also where people can go and say, hey, I need this module. Like, it would be great if anybody has time on it, they can work on it. And this photo swipe module was an example of that Koran Tari opened up an issue saying, hey, I would really love this module being ported from Drupal, and Graham72 popped in and said, here you go. It's ported. And not only did he port it, he made a release, which is even better. So thanks, Graham72, for doing that port. And awesome to see our community members talking back and forth like that. Other Contrib modules that were added, the headless module. Hey, Gregory. The headless module, which looks like it was made by our own Serendipity here. Jeff, do you want to give a little shout out about what you're working on there with this module? And I saw you posting some things in chat as well regarding APIs for Backdrop, like REST APIs.
Yeah, it's largely like the JSON API idea of delivering content to whatever front end you want and being able to deliver to multiple destinations like a mobile app and a website. Right now it's read-only. It has support for paragraphs, nodes, taxonomies, and views.
Oh, that's pretty cool. What do you mean by views? Like,
so it exposes an admin config form, and it looks up the machine names of views and gives you a checkbox to say, I want to provide a JSON endpoint for that. And then if you hit like API/views/machine name, it will give you JSON output of the fields, so you can render that on your front end app or whatever you're using it for.
Is it JSON that includes the configuration of the view, or JSON that is the content of the view?
I was mainly focused on the content. There was a lot of stuff there that I didn't actually need, but it certainly had the content there because I was working with content primarily. So there is room for improvement on this thing.
Cool. Awesome. So the headless module joined the Backdrop Contrib group, as well as user import, which is a tool for importing user accounts into Backdrop. Looks like mostly from CSV files, which looks like that could be handy for bulk import of user data. Also, new releases. UberCart had a new release, version 1.0.3 beta, and Field Group 1.0.3 as well, actually. As always, it's great to see Contrib World thriving and new releases and modules being maintained. Let's see, we'll move on to website related development tasks, the things that we're working on backdropcms.org. There were some more updates to the demo button functionality. We covered that in the outreach meeting just before this, but if you'd like to take a look, it's issue 422 in the backdropcms.org issue queue. There's some feedback going on there. There's currently a demo site, a demo functionality. You can go and try it out. It's at backdropcms.org/demo/create. And you can click a button there and make a sandbox in a couple of seconds. It's kind of fun. So we're soliciting more feedback for that functionality in issue 422. And yeah, there's definitely lots of improvements to be made, but it's doing something. So thoughts and feedback welcome on that functionality. The forum site, I don't think we have any updates this week on the forum site. We mentioned during the outreach meeting that there's some UX improvements that could be made to the forum site, but I don't think we have anything to call out during the dev meeting. Translation site update, localize.backdropcms.org. I haven't seen any action directly on that site recently, although I would call it again like the translation string extractor module, the POTX module. Integration is necessary, or would be preferable for the localization server to work with the packager and the POTX module to make it so that when new releases of modules were made, those strings were pushed to the localization server. Even in the world of Drupal, it seems as though right now they're dependent upon people manually running the POTX module, usually through Drush, on every module that is released in every version of Drupal that is released, and then uploading it to the localization server, which is just seems incredibly tedious for something that could be entirely automated. So POTX integration would be really great if we could put that together. But related to that is that we have this new config translation functionality in Backdrop 1.12, but the POTX module doesn't actually know how to extract the strings yet. And so Herdul filed an issue for that. It's POTX issue number 9. To make it so that we could expand the POTX module to start pulling strings out of config files to make it so that we can include those in our template files that we upload to the localization server. In the case of all sites, it's been suggested by Tim that we do a virtual sprint for a 10-day period at the beginning of February 1st through 10th. Maybe, like, it seems like a pretty good idea to just get together, put a little bit of focus on a couple of problems that we have on our collection of websites. There hasn't been a whole lot of conversation around this yet. It's backdropcms.org issue 494. If you're interested in participating, post a comment there saying, hey, that sounds like fun. I could work on this. Let's see. Do you guys have anything else you guys would like to bring up regarding the websites? All right, we'll roll on to just the project progress report. Let's see. So we mentioned this last week that last week there was a lot of activity. Not only did we put out Backdrop 1.12, right after the day of our release, there was a security release of Drupal that made it so that we released 1.12.1. So 1.12 already has its first update, which included 2 security fixes and some other minor updates that were found in the one day between 1.12 and 1.12.1. Okay, for 1.12.2, though, we have a number of issues that have cropped up here. I thought I removed that one. So something that cropped up this week, we found that the new views grid functionality was intended to be backwards compatible, where existing sites would be completely unaffected by the new option to use CSS grids for views instead of table-based layouts whenever you used a grid type display. The intention was that they would stay as they were, but it looks like what ended up happening is that if you update from 1.11 to 1.12, they get kind of forced into the new approach instead. And so issue 3494 is working to solve this problem. The issue currently needs review. It adds an update hook to explicitly set all legacy views to use the table-based version instead of the CSS grid-based version of views. So that issue could use some review because it's an update hook. It's the sort of thing that we usually have to test out manually because it doesn't really represent anything in the demo sandboxes because they'll already start with the updates applied. And this is really about an upgrade issue from 1.11 and prior versions to 1.12. Let's see.
I wanted to give that a go. So a proper way to test this is to install first 1.11.5, I guess. Then use a view that uses the old tables and then upgrade to 1.12.2, sorry, .1, and then see if it still works as expected.
That's correct.
Zen said that she will post an export of a view so to make my life easier when testing. I would appreciate that, and then I can do it over the weekend.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Let's see, we also have some issues regarding our update functionality, which one of our headline features of 1.12 is that core can now self-update. It doesn't automatically self-update, but the ability to update through the user interface is exposed now. It's also turned off by default, but you can turn it on, and then it doesn't work right now. Because it turns out actually pretty much all downloading from GitHub seems to be intermittently functional right now. There's an issue for this at 3488 that it seems as though a change on the GitHub side or AWS side, we're not quite sure which one, made it so that Backdrop can no longer download files from GitHub consistently. It's actually been a little bit strange. Like, I hadn't had any problems until recently. But then after I posted the pull request, some other people said that it's working for them fine right now without it. So, but it does look like we have a fix that will solve the problem regardless. It's in 3488. It's currently RTBC. And so that will be in 1.12.2 for certain. Also related to core updates, there's also an intermittent problem that sometimes our tests.info files get parsed when doing a core self-update. And so that issue is 1294. Currently, I don't think there's any code backing that one up. It's just a known problem.
What was the decision there? Would it be that we will find a way to change the logic to excluding those by file name, or to add the type equals test to those types?
I would think that just excluding them by file name would be highly preferable because it wouldn't require any changes for trib or anything else. Plus, it's easy enough to identify them. You know, they're .tests.info. So that's merely a recursive parsing problem that we should just skip those files and not try to validate them when we do a project download. So let's see, those two issues are probably of highest importance. Oh, actually, I don't know, the views grid one is probably highest of all because it's an actual regression that is affecting people's sites. So 3494 top priority, followed by these two regarding update functionality, which would make it so that this awesome new feature that we have would work consistently. Let's see. Also, again, calling out a couple of RTL issues that Shah Babam filed. He's been making great issues that say how to fix RTL issues, but he hasn't filed any patches on them. I know that we've had a lot of community members come in and create pull requests based off of his suggestions, which has been extraordinarily helpful. We got 4 of those issues merged into 112.1. And there's still several more to be found. You can find those just by searching for RTL in the Backdrop issue queue.
Regarding to that, there was a suggestion by, sorry, I don't remember the handle of the person, one member of the community, that we should have a single pull request for all the RTL issues. But I suggested that we should leave them as they are, like for each issue separate PR, because then if something goes wrong, we can revert easily. But I don't know what the policy is there. So yeah.
Yeah, I personally find separate ones to be highly preferable, so that way, like if there's a problem with one pull request or one RTL thing, it doesn't hold up the other 6, you know?
Yeah. Can I would appreciate if you chimed in on the, because it was a discussion back and forth. So if we have an official reply, I'll post the link to the issue where the discussion was going on Gitter, and then maybe you can spend like a minute to just come and chime in.
Yeah, that would be great.
Cool, thanks.
That's all I've got for the next bug fix release, which is 112.2. So those are things that we'd like to fix as soon as possible. We usually like to make at least one bug fix release, usually within 2 weeks of the minor release. So that probably means sometime next week we will be pushing out 112.2. Hopefully we will have solved these problems before that point in time. And then when 112.2 comes out, that's usually when we update upstreams for service providers like Pantheon and Platform and things of that nature. So let's see, let's move on to 113. 113, the lucky release. Which will be coming out May 15th, 2019. Right now, the items that we've got in the 113 milestone are largely things that have been pushed from 112. They include the dashboard, fieldable files, adding more translation functionality to config files, and package signing. So all 4 of those were things that we made a pretty good start on in 112, but they didn't make it in. Let's go through them one at a time here. So dashboard is issue 495. There hasn't been any changes in dashboard recently. I don't think. It's basically a port of the total control module. My own review of it kind of leaves me overwhelmed with the functionality as it is right now. It's basically just a whole lot of listings that kind of fire hose information at you, which is probably great from an experienced site manager perspective, but from a new user perspective, when I pull it up, it's a lot. So feedback and concepts for improving the dashboard are at 495. Technically, it's really solid. We've got a really great implementation of how it's built and the way blocks are provided and what blocks are provided. But we really could use some more thought around, is there some design that we could apply to this, and what kind of information can we show that is actually useful to administrators? So issue 495 could use some additional review. There's a great demo sandbox that you can pull up and play with to get an idea of what functionality it has. Fieldable file types, issue 2632. The consensus on this one is that we'd like to reduce the scope of what is included in it. I think in particular, right now, this includes some fields. For example, on images, it includes like alt and title fields being added to image fields, or added to files of the image type. But then these fields aren't actually used anywhere, for example. So there's things that are kind of cruft that was made to be assistive in the Drupal 7 version of the file entity module, kind of stubbing things out for you to then build upon. But as far as core is concerned, like, these things should do something if they're in core. They shouldn't just be there to, well, there's this field in case you want to use it, like, but it doesn't do anything. It's just confusing. So still trying to find ways to reduce the scope of that issue is probably the primary problem we have with this. There hasn't been any activity on it, but again, it's like a really solid chunk of code that just needs to be reduced in size.
Sorry, Nate. So the alt field is not used during render time for images?
When you upload a file right now, in the image field, it asks you for the title and the alt. Those are used. The per instance of using that image, the title and alt fields are used from the field in which you uploaded the image into. But then that image itself, you can go and edit it after this pull request, and then there's fields on the file itself for title and alt, and they don't do anything, for example. Actually, well, yeah, I don't think they do anything at all. Yeah, so it's confusing. I would imagine that it might be nice if every time you reused that image, then that title and alt were pre-populated into the per instance, place that you used it. But
yeah,
I don't think that kind of mapping functionality exists.
Yeah, I thought that was the main sort of like goal.
Yeah.
but it's not. But it's not happening. Okay, cool.
That's exactly right. One of those things that it's like, yeah, you would think that. But maybe it does work that way in file entity. I've not seen it do that, though.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I've seen that. I think D8 has the alt field also be mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm wrong. Yeah, anyways.
So anyway, more thoughts and ideas on 2632 would be appreciated. Let's see, this add translatable strings to core config files is issue 3455, in which we have this new config translation functionality. And the suggestion here is that we need to start going through the config files and start mapping all of the translatable strings that are within those config files. I'm actually not sure that this needs to be in the 1.13 release. Like, this is the sort of thing that there's no functional difference before and after them. We're just modifying config files. I don't know. It could be something that we could push into 1.12. We'll see, like, as the implementation comes together, like the scope of it, if it looks like it would have any kind of effects on any existing sites. I mean, the work that basically needs to be done here is adding a new key to the config files that say, these are the key inside of the config file will be a list of other keys inside of the config file that are translatable. So this won't be too terribly difficult, but it'll probably be a little bit of legwork going through all the config files and updating all of those properties. So once we establish a pattern for how we want to do that, then it's going to be, pattern applying throughout all of core to find all of those strings. Let's see. And lastly, package signing. This is functionality that we'd like to add to make it so that the transit of packages from where they're hosted on GitHub to where they get downloaded onto your site can be validated and guaranteed that that package was officially run through backdropcms.org's packager, so that you can be assured at least that that package is valid from what we expect it to be across transit. So this is issue 1992. And we actually seen some pretty good progress here recently. John Franklin has posted a new version of his approach to things, which uses this new module called CodeSign. And CodeSign has, looks like he's working to make it work with GPG, GNU PG, or OpenSSL, kind of a swappable systems for signing the packages. So I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but it's kind of exciting looking, like as an alternative to one of the other signing approaches that we had been looking at previously. So that's pretty great, actually. The work that we have so far is kind of theoretical, but it's good to see this sort of thing coming together. And that's it for the product update. I don't think we have any things in 1.13 that haven't been talked about previously. It's a long way until May, so it's like, the doors are open for other functionality as well. If there's anything that you guys would like to talk about for 1.13, then we can bring them up now. No? Okay. All right, then. Any Q&A, any questions, or any other topics you guys would like to discuss? No. Okay. Okay, well, short and sweet then. Thank you guys all for coming along to the dev meeting this mid-January celebration of Backdrop development. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys around on the internet and catch you guys around. Thanks.
Bye.